She didn't even wait for the drinks to arrive. "I don't think this is going to work," she said flatly, eyes already drifting past him, like he was just another noise in a city that never shuts up. In Manhattan, that usually ended things fast. Blind dates were a gamble here. Everyone knew it. You met, you smiled, you lied a little, then you decided if the night was worth the subway ride home. And when it wasn't, you wrapped it up politely. But she didn't bother with polite. She crossed her arms, leaned back in the chair, and added, almost daring him to react, "You don't look like someone I'd ever trust." Most guys would have scoffed. Some would have snapped back. A few would have walked out and called it a night. He didn't do any of that. He just watched her. Not in a creepy way, not like he was judging her, more like he was noticing things other people missed. The way her jaw tightened after she spoke, the way her fingers curled into her sleeve, the way she kept checking the door like she was measuring the fastest exit. She was trying to ruin this date, on purpose, and somehow he knew it. Outside, taxis blared, sirens cut through the air, and New York kept moving like it always did, loud, impatient, unforgiving. Inside that small restaurant, something quiet and uncomfortable was settling between them. She expected him to leave. Instead, he smiled, not amused, not offended, curious. And that's when she realized this night wasn't going to end the way she planned. Before the story continues, if emotional stories like this pull you in, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that might stay with you longer than you expect.
The waiter finally came back, setting 2 glasses of water on the table like he was afraid to interrupt something tense. She didn't touch hers. "So," she said, glancing at him for half a second, "you can save us both some time." There it was. Her voice wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of calm that carried a warning, the kind New Yorkers used when they were done pretending. "I'm not great company. I don't do small talk, and I definitely don't do expectations." She paused, watching his face closely, like she was testing how much it would take to make him uncomfortable. Most people, she'd learned, hated silence, hated being dismissed, hated feeling unwanted. He didn't interrupt her. She leaned forward now, lowering her voice. "This isn't going anywhere. You should probably finish your drink and head out." That should have been the end of it, the polite exit, the mutual relief. Another failed blind date filed under "Welcome to New York." But instead of reaching for his coat, he picked up his glass, took a slow sip, then set it back down. "Funny," he said casually, "that you say all that like you're doing me a favor." She blinked, just once. That wasn't the reaction she expected. "I'm serious," she replied, sharper now. "I don't think you get it."
"Oh, I get it," he said. "You're trying to push me out before I decide to leave on my own." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. That hit closer than it should have. She forced a small, cold smile. "You're overthinking it." "Maybe," he shrugged. "Or maybe you came here tonight hoping I'd walk away so you wouldn't have to explain anything." There it was again, that calm, steady tone. No accusation, no attitude, just observation. She stood up so suddenly the chair scraped loudly against the floor. A few heads turned. Typical New York. Curious for half a second, then back to their own lives. "I don't owe you an explanation," she said. "No," he agreed, looking up at her. "You don't." That stopped her. Because he wasn't arguing, he wasn't offended, he wasn't trying to win. He was giving her an out, and somehow that made it harder to take. She hesitated, standing there, heart pounding louder than the traffic outside. Finally, she sat back down. 5 minutes, that's it. He smiled, just slightly. "Take your time," he replied. "You look like you've been carrying this day all by yourself." She didn't respond, but for the first time that night, she stopped watching the door. In New York, 5 minutes could mean anything. 5 minutes could be a quick hello on a corner by the bodega. 5 minutes could be a lifetime stuck behind a double-parked delivery truck while some guy yelled, I'm coming," like the rest of the city didn't have somewhere to be. But at that table, her 5 minutes sounded like a countdown to disaster. She sat stiff, shoulders up, chin lifted like armor. Her eyes were sharp, scanning him the way people scanned subway cars at midnight, fast, cautious, ready to move if something felt off. He didn't lean in, didn't try to charm her, didn't do that corny, "so what do you do" stuff like he was reading off a first date script. Instead, he glanced out the window at the stream of headlights and said, almost to himself, "You picked a loud spot for someone who wants to disappear." Her pulse jumped. "What?" she snapped. He looked back at her, calm as ever.
This place, Midtown, all glass and noise, people walking by, phones out, eyes everywhere. He tilted his head. If you wanted to end a date fast, there were 100 quieter places. She felt heat crawl up her neck. Maybe I like the noise. Maybe, he said, or maybe noise makes it easier to hide. She laughed, dry, ugly. Hide from what? You're acting like you're in some movie. He didn't flinch at that either, just nodded like he was taking notes. Okay, then let's keep it simple. She waited for the punchline. He slid his phone face down on the table and leaned back. No names, no jobs, no fake smiles. You get your 5 minutes, I get my 5 minutes. We tell the truth just once, like strangers on the L train who will never see each other again. The comparison hit her wrong, too close, too real. She swallowed. I didn't say I'd tell you anything. You don't have to, he said, but you're here. Yeah, she shot back, because my friend set me up, because I was bored, because I needed an alibi, her mind finished, and she hated that it was true.
He watched her face the way a good New Yorker watched traffic, patient, reading patterns. Your friend, he repeated. Let me guess, he's safe, he's nice, he won't waste your time, something like that. Her eyes narrowed. How would you know? He shrugged, because that's what people say when they're trying to convince you to show up. Then softer, you didn't come here for fun. Silence sat between them, heavy. The waiter returned with 2 drinks. She hadn't ordered anything, but somehow there was a cocktail in front of her anyway. Light, citrusy, with a little twist of peel, like the bartender had guessed. She stared at it, suspicious. I didn't order this, she said. I did, he replied. Her head snapped up. Why? Because your hands were shaking, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Not a lot, just enough. Her stomach dropped. She glanced down at her hands, then quickly curled them into fists under the table. That's not, she started. He raised a palm. I'm not calling you out. I'm just paying attention. The way he said it made her throat tighten. She forced her voice flat again. Congrats, you notice things. Yeah, it's kind of my thing. Of course it is, she thought. Rich guy hobby, observing people like they're chess pieces. Let me guess, she said, going for the jugular. You're one of those finance guys. Market this, portfolio that. You probably think you can read people because you read numbers.
He chuckled once. You hate that world. I hate fake, she replied. He nodded, then surprised her by agreeing. So do I. That landed weirdly, because she expected him to defend himself, to flex, to make her feel small. That's what men with money did when they felt challenged. But he stayed steady. And that steadiness did something dangerous. It made her feel seen. She hated that. So what's your 5 minutes of truth? She asked, sharp, like she was daring him to lie. He didn't answer right away. He looked at her glass again, then at the door, then back at her face. You keep checking that entrance, not like you're waiting for a friend, like you're afraid of running into the wrong person. Her breath caught. For a split second, she forgot to be cold. Then she snapped back into it. You don't know anything about me. He nodded. You're right. I don't. He leaned forward just slightly, still respectful, still not crowding her. But I know what fear looks like when it's wearing designer mascara and pretending it's just attitude. Her chest tightened so fast it felt like someone had grabbed her ribs. She blinked hard. That's ridiculous. Maybe, or maybe you've been calling it cold because that sounds better than scared. She stared at him, heart pounding, 1,000 subway noises in her ears even though they were inside. Outside, a siren wailed past like the city was reminding her, keep moving, don't feel, don't stop. But she couldn't move. Not yet. Because in 2 minutes, this stranger had said the one thing she'd been fighting all week. He wasn't buying the act. And for the first time that night, she wondered if that was the most dangerous thing about him, or the safest.
She hated the way her body reacted before her mind could catch up. A tightness in her throat, the sudden sting behind her eyes, the way her stomach dropped like she'd missed a step on a dark subway platform. She sat there staring at him like he'd just reached across the table and touched something he had no right to touch. You're doing that thing, she said, voice clipped. What thing? He asked, like he genuinely didn't know. That therapist thing, she said, waving a hand as if she could swat the moment away. Acting like you can read my soul from across a table. He didn't laugh, didn't smirk. He just nodded once. Okay, then I'll stop guessing. She exhaled through her nose, relieved, until he added, but you should stop pretending you're not scared. Her jaw tightened. I'm not scared. He tilted his head. You're right, you're not scared. A beat. You're bracing. That word hit harder than anything else. Bracing. Like she was waiting for impact.
She forced a laugh that sounded like glass. "You don't know what you're talking about." "He might not," he admitted, "but I know what it looks like when someone's been rehearsing their exit plan all day." She felt her fingers twitch under the table again and pressed her nails into her palm until it stung. Pain was easier than whatever this was. The restaurant buzzed around them, forks clinking, people talking too loud, a couple arguing softly in the corner like they were trying to keep their mess private. New York drama served hot. She leaned back and put on her cold mask again. "Listen," she said, lowering her voice. "You seem smart, or whatever. So I'll be honest. I came here to end this fast." He nodded. "I know."
"And if you keep digging, I'm going to leave," she added. He didn't even blink. That's fair. The calmness in his response made her irritation flare up again. Because why wasn't he fighting back? Why wasn't he offended? Why wasn't he doing what everyone else did, making it about his ego? She took a sip of the cocktail in front of her, partly to keep her mouth busy, partly to prove she wasn't shaking. The drink was good, too good, fresh, light, expensive in a subtle way. She hated that he ordered it correctly. She set it down too hard. "So what, you just sit here and play detective for fun?" He leaned back, hands relaxed. "No." "Then why are you so calm?" she snapped. "Most people would have walked out by now." He watched her for a long second, then answered quietly, "Because I don't think you're actually trying to hurt me." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. He continued, voice steady, "I think you're trying to protect yourself." The words slid under her armor like a knife. She looked away fast, pretending to check her phone. The screen was black, no notifications, nothing. Her reflection stared back at her. Perfect eyeliner, expensive coat, hair done like she had her life together. A lie polished to a shine. "I don't need protecting," she said, but her voice was thinner now. He didn't challenge it. He just nodded again, like he was letting her have her illusion. Then something happened, small, almost invisible.
The front door opened. A gust of cold air rushed in, bringing the smell of wet pavement and street carts. A group of people stepped inside, laughing, shaking snow off their shoulders like they owned the place. And her whole body tensed. Not in a normal, it's cold way, in a freeze way. Her eyes flicked to the entrance so fast it was automatic. Her shoulders stiffened. Her breathing went shallow. He noticed immediately. He didn't stare. He didn't make a scene. He just shifted slightly in his seat, blocking her view of the door with his shoulder, like he was giving her a break. She caught it anyway. And that simple movement, that quiet protective instinct, made something inside her crack. She swallowed hard. "It's nothing." He didn't say, "I don't believe you." He didn't say anything at all. He just reached for his glass and took a slow sip, letting the moment breathe. She hated him for being patient, because patience made space, and space was where feelings leaked out. She pressed her fingers to her temple, trying to steady herself. "This is stupid," she muttered. "What is?" he asked gently. "This," she said, gesturing between them, "sitting here like you're some kind of safe place." His eyes softened. "I'm not a safe place."
The blunt honesty made her look back at him. He continued, voice low. "I'm a stranger, in New York, on a random night. That's it. A beat. But sometimes strangers are easier than people who already know your story." Her throat tightened again, and she hated that her eyes burned. She blinked fast and reached into her bag, pretending to search for something. Her fingers brushed against something hard at the bottom. The small key fob, the pepper spray, the little thing she'd started carrying recently, like she lived in a city that could swallow you whole. She pulled out her lipstick instead and applied it with shaky precision, like painting her mouth could repaint her life. "Don't do that," she said suddenly. He frowned. "What do?" "Look at me like that," she snapped, but her voice broke on the last word. He stayed quiet, and the silence did the thing silence always did. It made truth louder. She set the lipstick down. Her shoulders dropped, just a fraction. "I'm not here because I wanted to meet someone," she said, barely above a whisper. He didn't move, didn't interrupt, didn't rescue her with jokes. He just waited. She swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the table. "I'm here," she admitted, "because I needed to be seen. Not noticed, seen." And the moment the words left her mouth, her face twisted like she just regretted them, like she just handed a stranger a loaded weapon. But he didn't grab it. He just nodded slowly, like he understood exactly what that meant. And outside, New York kept roaring, like nothing in the world had changed. But for her, something had. A crack in the cold. A crack big enough for him to see through.
The words hung there between them, fragile and dangerous. I needed to be seen. She immediately regretted saying it. Her instincts screamed at her to take it back, to laugh it off, to throw another layer of sarcasm over it like a winter coat. In New York, vulnerability was currency you didn't spend unless you were sure you'd get something back. And she had no idea what this man would do with it. She straightened in her chair, rebuilding the wall brick by brick. I didn't mean it like that, she said quickly. Everyone wants attention. That's not... I know, he said. That stopped her again. He didn't say, you're right. He didn't say, you're wrong. He said, I know, like he wasn't arguing with the words, just the fear behind them. She frowned. You don't. I do, he replied, because if this was about attention, you'd be trying to impress me. She opened her mouth to respond, then froze. He leaned back slightly, giving her space, but his eyes stayed steady on hers. You're doing the opposite. Her chest tightened. Outside, a delivery truck honked, long and angry, like it was personally offended by existence. Someone laughed too loud on the sidewalk. Somewhere, a subway rumbled underground, shaking the city from its bones. Life kept moving. She felt stuck. You ever notice, he continued carefully, how people who've been hurt don't try to be liked? She felt her pulse in her ears. They try to be unreachable. She crossed her arms again, defensive. That's a big assumption. Yeah, he agreed easily. That's why I'm asking instead of telling. She stared at him. Asking what? He paused. Not for drama, not for effect, like he was choosing his words the way you chose where to step on cracked ice. What happened, he asked quietly, that made you decide it was safer to push people away before they got close? There it was. Not what's wrong with you, not why are you like this, not who hurt you, but what happened. Her breath caught so sharply she had to look away. The restaurant suddenly felt smaller, hotter, like all the air had been sucked out and replaced with memories she'd been duct taping shut for days. She laughed, short and brittle. Wow, you don't waste time. I don't, he said, and you don't either. She shook her head, eyes fixed on the condensation sliding down her glass. You ask that like people just go around answering. I ask it like someone who knows there's a reason, he replied. She swallowed hard. Her foot bounced under the table, fast, uncontrollable. That's not first date conversation, she muttered. Neither is trying to sabotage the date in the first 5 minutes, he said gently. She looked up at him, anger flaring. You think this is some kind of puzzle? No, he said immediately. I think it's a boundary. He paused. I'm just trying to see where it is. Her jaw clenched. And if I don't want to show you, then you don't, he said. No pressure, no challenge. I'm not here to force anything. That calm again. That infuriating, grounding calm. She pushed her chair back slightly, just enough to breathe. You're really okay with me just shutting this down? He nodded. Yeah. Even after all this, she asked. Especially after all this, he replied, because now I know it wouldn't be about me. Something inside her twisted. That was the problem. He wasn't making it about himself. Men who got uncomfortable made it about themselves. Men who felt rejected made it about themselves. Men who felt exposed turned cruel or sarcastic or cold. He did none of that. She rubbed her forehead slowly. You're annoying. He smiled just a little. I get that a lot. She almost smiled back. Almost. Then her phone buzzed on the table. The sound sliced through her nerves. She froze. Didn't reach for it. Didn't even look down. He noticed immediately. Everything okay? He asked carefully. She swallowed. Yeah. Another buzz. Her hand twitched. He didn't move. Didn't lean in. Didn't ask again. The phone buzzed a third time. She grabbed it too fast, knocking it slightly against her glass. Water sloshed. Her heart raced like she'd been caught doing something wrong. She glanced at the screen, and her face drained of color. He saw it. The way her lips parted, the way her shoulders pulled inward, the way her eyes went distant, like she wasn't in that restaurant anymore. He lowered his voice instinctively. Hey. She shook her head, already standing. I need to go. Now. Okay, he said immediately, rising halfway from his seat, then stopping himself. That's okay. She shoved the phone into her bag with shaking hands. I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake. She reached for her coat. He stayed where he was, didn't block her, didn't argue, just looked up at her and said quietly, whatever just happened, you don't have to explain it. Her eyes flicked to his. But, he added, you're not crazy for reacting like that.
Her breath hitched, because that was the thing no one ever said. Not "it's fine," not "calm down," not "you're overreacting." You're not crazy. Her grip tightened on her coat. For a split second, she almost told him, almost let the words spill out right there between the clatter of dishes and the noise of the city. But fear won. She shook her head, backing away. "I can't." "I know," he said softly. She turned and walked toward the door, heart pounding, every step feeling heavier than the last. Behind her, New York waited, loud, relentless, familiar. She reached for the handle, and that's when he said the one thing she didn't expect. "Hey." She stopped, hand still on the door. He didn't raise his voice, didn't chase her. He just said, "If you walk out right now, I won't stop you." She closed her eyes. "But if you stay," he continued, "I promise I won't ask you to relive anything you're not ready to." Silence. Her fingers trembled. This was the moment. Leave and stay alone with it, or sit back down and risk being seen a little more than felt safe. She let go of the door, slowly turned around, and walked back to the table.
She sat back down like someone lowering themselves onto thin ice, carefully, quietly, ready to bolt at the first crack. Neither of them spoke right away. The waiter passed by, glanced at the tension hanging over the table, and wisely kept moving. In New York, you learned when not to get involved. She stared at her glass again, then finally pushed it away, untouched now. "I didn't come here because I wanted to meet someone," she said. He nodded once. No surprise. No, "I knew it," just acknowledgement. "I figured," he replied. She huffed out a breath. Figures. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, thumb rubbing the fabric over and over like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I almost canceled," she continued, "like 5 times. "What stopped you?" he asked. She hesitated, then shrugged like she was trying to make it sound smaller than it was. "I needed a reason to be out tonight." The words landed heavy. He didn't ask why, didn't push, just waited. She glanced up at him, then quickly away again. "You ever tell someone where you're going even when you don't know if you'll actually go there?" "Yeah," he said, "all the time." Her eyes flicked back to his. "Really?" He gave a half smile. "It makes the city feel less sharp." That made sense to her in a way she didn't want to admit. She nodded slowly. "Exactly." Her foot bounced onto the table again. She forced it still. "I told my roommate I had a date," she went on. "Told my friend too. Texted my sister earlier. Made it sound normal." A pause. "Like I had plans, like I wasn't just floating." He watched her closely, not missing the way her voice dropped on that last word. "So this date," he said gently, "wasn't about me." She let out a humorless laugh. "God, no." He smiled faintly. "Good. That would have been a lot of pressure." She almost laughed for real that time. Almost. She inhaled, then exhaled slowly, like she was psyching herself up for something harder. "I came because sitting alone in my apartment felt worse," she admitted. "Because if I stayed home, I'd just keep checking my phone, waiting, spiraling." "Waiting for what?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "That's the part I'm not ready to say." He didn't argue. "That's okay," he said. "You don't owe me the whole story." Her shoulders relaxed just a bit. "But," he added carefully, "whatever you're waiting for, it's been living in your body all night." She swallowed. "That obvious?" To someone paying attention, yeah. She stared at the table, jaw clenched. "I hate New York sometimes. It's loud, it's crowded, and somehow you can still feel completely invisible." He nodded. "That's the paradox." She glanced up. "You ever feel that?" "All the time," he replied, "especially when everyone assumes you're fine." That made her look at him differently. "Assumes?" she echoed. He shrugged. "People see what they expect." She studied his face now, really studied it. The calm confidence, the lack of desperation, the way he didn't need to prove anything. "You're not just some finance guy," she said. He smiled. "And you're not just cold." She rolled her eyes. "Careful, that's my brand." He chuckled softly, then grew serious again. "You came tonight because you needed proof that the world was still moving." Her breath caught. "And because," he continued, "if something happened later, someone would know where you were supposed to be." Her eyes snapped to his. He held her gaze, steady but kind. "That's not weakness, that's survival." Her throat tightened so fast she had to press her lips together to keep from breaking. She turned her head slightly, blinking hard. "I didn't plan on telling anyone that." "He know," he said. She wiped under her eye quickly, annoyed at herself. This was supposed to be a bad date. He smiled gently. "It still can be." She let out a shaky laugh. "You're terrible at this." "At ruining dates?" he asked. "At being dismissible," she replied. He leaned back, hands open.
I'm not trying to be anything." That honesty hit again. She stared at him, heart racing, then finally asked the question that had been hovering between them all night. "Why are you here? Really?" He didn't answer right away. Outside, a taxi honked. Somewhere down the block, someone yelled into a phone like the person on the other end had personally betrayed them. New York kept doing what it did best. He met her eyes again. "Because sometimes," he said, "listening is more important than being seen." She studied him for a long second, then nodded slowly. "Okay, then listen." And just like that, the night shifted again.
She didn't start talking right away. Instead, she took a breath, the kind that sat heavy in her chest like she'd been holding it all evening without realizing. Her eyes drifted past him, toward the window where neon reflections bent and blurred against the glass, like the city itself couldn't quite hold its shape. "I don't usually do this," she said finally. He nodded. "You don't have to explain that either." A small exhale escaped her. "Thank you." She traced the rim of her glass with one finger, slow and deliberate. "I've been on edge all week, jumping at every noise, second-guessing everything I say, everything I wear, even where I sit in a room." He listened, not like someone waiting for his turn to speak, like someone absorbing patterns. "That's why you picked this place," he said softly. She glanced at him. "What?" "This restaurant, open layout, glass walls, multiple exits. You can see the street from every angle." A pause. "You weren't looking for atmosphere. You were looking for control." Her pulse spiked. "I just like knowing what's around me," she said quickly. Of course, anyone would, but the way he said it told her he'd already filed the detail away. She shifted in her seat. "You're really good at this." "At listening?" he asked. "At noticing when people lie to themselves." That made him smile. Not smug, not proud, just aware. "I've had practice," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Watching people pretend they're okay," he replied. She scoffed lightly. "Sounds exhausting." "It is," he agreed, "but it also teaches you something." "What?" "That fear leaves fingerprints." She stilled. "On the little things," he went on. "Where you sit, how you hold your phone, the way you flinch when a notification hits at the wrong time." Her fingers curled instinctively around her bag strap. "That call," he added gently, "or text, whatever it wasn't just annoying." She looked away. No, he didn't push. Instead, he leaned back slightly, like he was laying pieces on a table between them. "You came here tonight because staying home felt unsafe," he said calmly. "You told people you had plans so someone would know where you were." He paused. "You chose a crowded place. You keep your back straight like you're ready to move, and you act cold so no one gets close enough to ask questions." Her heart hammered. She laughed weakly. "You make me sound paranoid." He shook his head. "I make you sound prepared." That word again. Prepared. Not broken, not dramatic, not overreacting. Prepared. Her shoulders sagged slightly, like she'd been carrying a bag that was finally set down. "Something happened recently," he continued, careful now. "Not years ago, not something you've moved on from." He met her eyes. "Something that taught you very quickly that your sense of safety could disappear." She swallowed hard. "You're good at this," she whispered again. He didn't deny it. "You haven't told many people," he said, "maybe no one, because once you say it out loud, it becomes real, and real things can't be controlled." Her throat tightened. "And control," he added quietly, "is what you're clinging to right now." She stared at him, eyes shining, jaw clenched like she was holding back a wave. "You don't even know my last name," she said. "I don't need it," he replied. "I know enough to know this isn't about being cold." She looked down at her hands. They weren't shaking anymore. That realization scared her more than the shaking hat. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. He blinked. "Doing what?" "Staying," she said. "Seeing all this. You could have left. Most people would have." He considered her for a moment, then answered honestly. "Because I know what it's like to sit across from someone who's screaming on the inside while the world tells them to calm down." Her eyes flicked up. "You do?" "Yeah." She searched his face, looking for cracks now, for proof he wasn't just some calm, unshakable force. "Then you know," she said quietly, "that once someone sees you like this, you can't unsee it." "I know," he replied. The weight of that settled between them. Outside, the city kept rushing, people passing by the window, laughing, arguing, living entire lives that had nothing to do with her moment unraveling at that table. She took another breath, slower this time.
"There's a reason I wanted you to leave," she said. He didn't interrupt. "Because if you stayed," she continued, voice low, "it meant I'd have to stop pretending nothing was wrong." He nodded. "And if I stop pretending," she swallowed, "I don't know what comes next." He held her gaze. "Sometimes," he said gently, "what comes next is just being believed." Her lips parted slightly. She looked at him like she was standing at the edge of something deep and dark and terrifying, and for the first time that night, she didn't step back.
The shift came quietly. No raised voices, no dramatic interruption, just a subtle change in the air, the kind you only notice when something fragile is about to break. Her phone buzzed again. Once, she froze. Not just stiff, locked, like every muscle in her body had received the same silent command at the same time. Don't move, don't react, don't let anyone see. He noticed immediately. Not the phone, her. The way her shoulders pulled inward, the way her chin dipped slightly, like she was trying to make herself smaller without meaning to. The way her eyes lost focus, slipping somewhere far from Midtown, far from the restaurant, far from him. She didn't reach for the phone this time. That scared him more. "You don't have to answer that," he said softly. She swallowed. "I know." Another buzz. Her breath went shallow. "I really should go," she said, already pushing her chair back. This time, it wasn't defensive. It was urgent. He stood too, slowly, deliberately, making sure his movements didn't feel like pressure. "Okay," he said. "I'll walk you out." "No," she replied too fast. "No, I need to leave alone." He nodded immediately. Got it. That surprised her. She grabbed her coat, hands clumsy now, adrenaline flooding her system like a subway surge at rush hour. "This was a mistake," she muttered, more to herself than to him. "I shouldn't have come. I shouldn't have." She stopped. Her phone buzzed again. She snapped. "Jesus," she whispered sharply, yanking it out of her bag. Her thumb hovered over the screen. He didn't lean in, didn't ask, didn't look, but he said one thing, low, grounded, steady. "You're safe right now." Her eyes flicked up to his. The words didn't erase the fear, but they slowed it. She stared at the screen for another second, then locked the phone and shoved it back into her bag. "I can't do this," she said, voice breaking despite her effort. "I can't sit here and pretend I'm okay when I'm not." "You're not pretending anymore," he said gently. "That's the problem," she shot back. "Once I stop pretending, I don't know how to put myself back together." She moved toward the door again, faster now. He followed, not close, not chasing, just enough that she could hear him. "Hey," he said. She didn't turn around. "If you leave right now, I won't think any less of you." Her hand hovered over the door handle. "And if you never want to see me again, that's okay too." She closed her eyes, because that wasn't manipulation, that was permission. "But," he said, choosing his words carefully, "but if you're leaving because you're afraid of being believed, that's something different." Her grip tightened on the handle. She felt the familiar urge, the one she always followed. Run, disappear, reset somewhere no one knew what she'd almost said. That night, he continued softly, "You don't have to explain it. You don't have to name it. You don't have to justify anything." She turned around slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious now, anchored. "You just have to decide whether walking away actually makes you safer or just lonelier." The words landed hard.
She laughed, shaky and breathless. "You really don't let go, do you?" "I let go when people need me to," he replied. "I just don't disappear when they're scared." Her throat burned. She looked around the restaurant, at the strangers eating dinner, laughing, complaining, living their normal lives like nothing monumental was happening 3 feet away. New York didn't pause for breakdowns. She looked back at him. "You promise?" she said quietly. "You won't push?" "I promise," he replied instantly. "I won't pull either." She stood there, torn between instinct and something new, between the safety of leaving and the risk of staying. Finally, she exhaled, long and shaky, and let go of the door. She walked back toward the table, slower this time. Not defeated, deciding. She sat down, wrapped her coat tighter around herself, and stared at the table like it might fall out from under her. "I'm staying," she said, "but I'm not okay." He nodded. "That's enough." She looked up at him, eyes glossy. "For now." And just like that, the night crossed a line it couldn't uncross.
She didn't cry, not yet. She just sat there, wrapped tight in her coat like it was armor, staring at the table as if eye contact might make the whole thing spill out. New York was still New York outside the window. Sirens, horns, people moving like the city was late for itself. Inside, everything felt slowed down, like the air had gotten thicker. He didn't fill the silence. He let it exist. A lot of people couldn't do that. Silence made them nervous, made them reach for jokes or advice or questions. He did none of it. Instead, he slid his phone across the table, screen dark, notifications off. A simple gesture. No one can reach me right now. Then he picked up his glass and took a small sip, like he wasn't in a rush to extract anything from her. That, somehow, was what cracked her. Not the words, the lack of demand. She swallowed hard. "I feel stupid," she said, voice barely there. He shook his head once. "Don't." She laughed under her breath, small and bitter. "You don't even know what I'm talking about." "I know enough," he said softly. She stared at him, eyes narrowing through a haze. "How?" He glanced at her bag, the way she'd kept it close all night, strap looped around her wrist like she couldn't risk it being grabbed. He glanced at the table, the way she always positioned her body so she could move quickly. He glanced at the door, how her eyes flicked to it any time it opened. Then he looked back at her face. "You're not afraid of me," he said. She didn't respond. "You're afraid of being cornered, afraid of being alone with the wrong person, afraid of a moment repeating itself." Her chest tightened. She stared at her hands. They were clenched again. "I'm not dramatic," she whispered. He leaned forward slightly, not closer, just more present. "People only call you dramatic when your fear makes them uncomfortable. Fear doesn't need permission to be real."
Her lips trembled. She pressed them together hard. He watched her, then asked a question, different from the others. Not what happened, not who, just, "Do you want me to stay at this table?" he asked gently, "or do you want more space?" She blinked, caught off guard. That question wasn't about details, it was about control. Her throat tightened again. "Stay," she whispered. He nodded. "Okay." Then he did something that made her go still. He stood up, her entire body tensed. He immediately stopped, held his hands slightly open, palms visible, like a quiet apology. "I'm just going to move my chair," he said softly, "so you're not boxed in." He pulled his chair to the side, subtle, small, but it changed the entire layout. Now she had a clear path to the aisle. No obstacle, no pressure. A way out. Her breath hitched. He sat back down slowly, leaving his body angled away from her, still there, still listening, but not looming. It was the kind of thing most men wouldn't even think about, but she felt it in her bones, and suddenly her eyes burned. She blinked fast. It didn't work. Tears gathered anyway, unwanted and humiliating. "Don't," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please don't make this worse." "I'm not trying to," he said. "I'm trying to make it easier." She shook her head quickly. "You don't understand what easier means for me." He paused, then answered, steady. "Then show me." That was it. Not a demand, an invitation. Her breath shook. She reached into her bag with trembling hands and pulled out her phone. He didn't move, didn't lean in, didn't ask. She stared at the screen for a long time before she unlocked it. The brightness hit her eyes like a spotlight, a message thread. Her thumb hovered. Then she slid the phone across the table, just enough that he could see, but not enough that he could grab it. A boundary still. He glanced down. He didn't read everything, didn't need to. 3 words on the screen were enough to drain the air from his lungs. "I know where you are." His jaw tightened. He looked up at her, face controlled, but eyes sharper now. "How long?" he asked quietly. She swallowed, tears falling now despite her efforts. "Since Tuesday," she whispered.
He didn't ask who, didn't ask how. He didn't say the obvious things people always said. Call the cops, change your number, block him. He already knew she'd done the easy steps. Easy steps didn't stop fear like this. Instead, he asked one question, calm and firm. "Do you feel in danger tonight?" he asked. Her throat closed. She nodded once. Barely. He didn't move fast, didn't panic, didn't make a scene. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out a small card, and placed it on the table. A plain, clean business card. Minimal, expensive without trying. She stared at it, then at him. "This is my direct line," he said. "Not an assistant, not a desk. Me." Her breath shook. "Why are you giving me that?" "Because you don't need another person telling you to be brave," he replied quietly. "You need options." She stared at him like she didn't know what to do with that. He kept his voice low, steady, almost clinical in the way it refused to dramatize her pain. "Tonight," he said, "you're not going home alone." Her head snapped up. "No, I can't." He lifted a hand gently. "I'm not saying you're coming with me." A pause. "I'm saying we're making sure you get home safely, on your terms." Her eyes filled again. Not because it solved everything, because nobody had said, "on your terms," in a long time. She wiped her cheek roughly, angry at herself. "This is insane," she whispered. He shook his head slightly. "This is New York." Then, softer, "and you shouldn't have to fight it by yourself." She stared at him, shaking, trying to decide if trust was stupidity or survival. He didn't rush her. He just stayed. And in that moment, she understood something that hit deeper than the texts. The real danger wasn't only the person on the other end of that message thread. The real danger was what she'd been doing to herself all week, shrinking, isolating, disappearing. And this stranger across from her, this man who didn't flinch at her fear, wasn't offering her a rescue fantasy. He was offering her one simple, powerful thing: a choice. She stared at the business card like it might burn through the table. A direct line to him, not a number that went to voicemail, not some call my office Monday nonsense, a real option, right now. In her world lately, options had been shrinking. First, she stopped going to the gym. Then she stopped taking calls on the street. Then she stopped posting. Then she stopped sleeping. Her life had become a series of small disappearances, all disguised as being careful. She swallowed, voice rough. I shouldn't drag you into this. He didn't blink. You're not dragging me. She looked up. Then what are you doing? He held her gaze, choosing. The simplicity of that answer made her stomach twist. She laughed once, breathless. That's wild. You don't even know me. He nodded. True. She waited for him to backtrack. He didn't. I don't know your whole story, he said calmly, but I know this part. You've been trying to handle it alone, and it's eating you alive. Her eyes stung again. She looked away quickly, ashamed. He continued, voice low so no one else could hear. And I know what it means when someone sends messages like that. It's not flirting, it's not drama, it's control. She felt cold spread across her skin. He glanced at the door again, then at the room. Tell me something, he said gently. Are you afraid they're watching you right now? Her throat tightened. She shook her head. No, not right now, but they've shown up places, like it was nothing. He nodded slowly, processing. Okay. Then he did what he'd been doing all night. He broke the moment into something manageable. Do you have a doorman? She blinked. What? Your building, he clarified. Do you have a doorman? No, it's a walk-up.
He exhaled through his nose like that was a piece he'd been expecting. Okay, any security cameras? Not really, she admitted. He nodded again, quiet but decisive. Do you have a roommate? Yes, she said quickly, then hesitated, but she's not always there. He leaned back slightly. Okay. She stared at him, confused, intense. Why are you asking me this? Because, he said, we're going to make a plan that doesn't rely on you being strong. Her breath caught. He was speaking like someone who'd done this before, not in a creepy way, in a competent way, a way that made her feel less crazy for not having it figured out. She whispered, I don't want to call the police. He nodded, no judgment. A lot of people don't. Because they'll ask questions, she said, and then they'll say there's nothing they can do unless... Her voice broke. Unless something happens. He watched her, jaw tightening for the first time all night. I'm not waiting for something to happen, he said. The firmness in his tone made her look up. He wasn't angry, he was resolved. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his wallet, and slid a second card next to the first. Different paper, heavier. She glanced at it. A name, a firm, a phone number. Private security? She whispered. He nodded. One of the teams I use. She stared at him like he just said he owned a helicopter. You have that? She stammered. He didn't show off, didn't act proud. Yes. She swallowed hard. Are you like rich? He gave the smallest smile. New York rich. She almost laughed, despite herself, then remembered she was terrified. He leaned in slightly, voice quieter. Listen, this is the part where people usually turn it into a romance story. The mysterious guy, the rescue, the dramatic kiss.
Her face flushed. I wasn't. I know, he said. I'm not either. He tapped the business card gently. This isn't about love. Her heartbeat thundered. He looked her straight in the eyes. It's about leverage. The word landed like a steel door closing. Leverage? She echoed. He nodded once. People who send messages like that count on you feeling alone. Count on you feeling small. A pause. I'm not small. She stared at him. He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a fact. I can't be your bodyguard. I can't live your life for you. His voice softened. But I can make it very expensive for someone to keep messing with you. Her throat tightened. Tears hovered again. She looked down, then back up. And what do you want in return? There it was, the question that always came, because nothing in her world lately had been offered without a hook. He answered immediately. Nothing, he said. She laughed bitterly. Come on. I'm serious, he replied. I'm not doing this for a storyline. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then why? He paused for the first time, like he was choosing honesty that might cost him. Because I've seen what fear does when it's ignored, and I don't want you to disappear. Her chest tightened so hard it hurt. He looked at her, steady, almost gentle again. Here's my proposal, he said. The word made her freeze. Proposal. Her mind flashed to the title, the CEO, the blind date, the twist. Her stomach lurched, half disbelief, half dread.
He continued before she could speak. Not a ring, he said. Not romance. Not tonight. He slid the cards closer to her, then kept his hands on his side of the table. A legal arrangement, he said. A temporary marriage contract. Quiet, private, for protection. She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. A what? She whispered. He nodded. A marriage on paper. Her mouth went dry. You can't be serious, she breathed. I am, he said, because it changes the game. She shook her head, overwhelmed. How? He leaned in slightly, voice calm, almost businesslike. If someone is stalking you because they think you're alone, they lose that advantage. She swallowed hard. If they're showing up because they think no one will believe you, they lose that advantage too. Her eyes flicked to the cards again. He kept going, not rushing, laying it out like a map. With my name attached to yours, he said, security changes. Buildings treat you differently. People think twice. Lawyers pick up the phone faster. He paused, and whoever's sending those messages will realize you're not an easy target anymore. She sat there, shaking, caught between fear and disbelief. This is insane, she whispered again, but her voice sounded smaller now. He nodded. It is, then softer, but it might work. She looked at him, searching his face for the catch. Why marriage? She asked, voice trembling. Why not just help me? He met her eyes. Because helping you for one night doesn't stop someone tomorrow. I'm offering something that changes your status. Status. In New York, status was a language everyone understood. She swallowed hard. And you'd do this with a stranger? She whispered. He nodded slowly. Only if you want it. He glanced at the door, then back at her. And only if it makes you safer, on your terms. Silence. Her hands trembled as she reached for the cards. The city outside kept roaring, uncaring, but at that table everything had narrowed to one impossible decision. Walk away and keep shrinking, or take a risk that might finally stop the fear from owning her life.
She didn't answer right away. She sat there with the two cards in front of her, fingers hovering just above them, like touching either one might make the choice irreversible. Marriage on paper. Protection disguised as something permanent. In New York, people married for green cards, for money, for convenience. Everyone pretended it was shocking, but deep down, the city understood contracts better than vows. Still, this wasn't supposed to be her story. I don't want to be rescued, she said quietly. He nodded immediately. Good, because that's not what this is. She looked up at him. Then what is it? A shield, he said. One you can take off later. Her jaw tightened. And if I say no, then I walk you home safely tonight, and tomorrow I help you find another way. A pause. This is an option, not an ultimatum. That mattered. She leaned back, eyes closing for a second, as she tried to hear her own thoughts over the noise of the city, the pounding of her heart, the echo of that message still burned into her memory. I know where you are. She opened her eyes again. You don't even know my middle name, she said. He smiled faintly. I can learn it. That almost broke her. She took a slow breath. If I do this, there are rules. He nodded. Of course. No pretending we're in love. No posting. No performance. Agreed. No touching unless I initiate. No questions I don't invite. Done. And the moment I say stop, she finished, voice firm now, it stops. He didn't hesitate. Immediately. She studied him for a long moment, then asked the question that had been sitting beneath everything else. Why does this feel different with you? He thought about it before answering. Because I'm not asking you to be grateful, he said. I'm asking you to be safe. Her chest tightened. She looked down at the cards again and picked up the heavier one, the security contact, and slid it into her bag. Then slowly she picked up his card. Held it. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just nodded once. Okay, she said. We do it. He didn't react like he'd won something. He simply exhaled. Controlled. Relieved. Okay, he replied. They didn't sign anything that night. They didn't celebrate. They didn't kiss. He paid the check quietly. She stood a little closer to him as they walked outside, not touching, but not far either. The air was cold, sharp, honest. On the sidewalk, taxis rushed past, steam rising from grates like the city was breathing around them. He walked her home, not beside her, but half a step behind, watching reflections in windows, scanning corners without making it obvious. At her building, she stopped. This is far enough, she said. He nodded. I'll text when I get home. She hesitated, then surprised herself. I'd like that. He smiled softly. Me too. She walked inside without looking back. Up the stairs, past the familiar creaks, to the door she'd been dreading all week. Inside, she locked it, checked the windows, then sat on the edge of her bed, heart still racing. Her phone buzzed. One message. I'm home. You're not alone anymore. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in days, she slept.
Weeks later, things were different, not magically fixed, different. Her name changed on paper. His appeared where it hadn't before. Doors opened faster. Conversations shifted. The messages stopped. Whoever had been watching her decided she wasn't worth the trouble anymore. They met for coffee sometimes, in public, in daylight. Still no pretending, still no promises, but something steady grew between them. Not romance at first, but trust, respect, safety. One afternoon, months later, she caught him watching her laugh at something small, something ordinary. What? She asked. He shook his head. Nothing. She smiled. Liar. He smiled back. Okay, I was just thinking you don't flinch anymore. She paused, realized he was right. That night in Midtown hadn't given her a fairy tale. It gave her her life back. And maybe one day the contract would end, or maybe it would turn into something else entirely. But either way, she knew one thing for sure. She hadn't ruined that blind date. She'd survived it. And someone had seen her, not as fragile, not as broken, but as someone worth standing beside.
If this story touched you, if it moved something in your heart, consider subscribing to the channel.